We are live, baby. It is back. The TW podcast is back in action. 2025 is upon us. January is moving forward quickly, but more importantly, we have some very exciting news. I think, when we originally launched the 2W podcast, the intent was it to almost be a breathing mechanism for the industry. Really bring some smart people, some forward-thinking leaders, some up-and-coming talent, right? You don't necessarily have to be in the game for 50 years to come on and talk about and be an expert. You could be a young, some young talent coming up. We want to open this up to adjacent industries. We really want the best and the brightest. I think the intent is that we can really move the industry forward. And without further ado, the 2W podcast has recently welcomed Ariel Loza on as a contributor. He will be working side by side with our contributors, bringing the most cutting edge stuff. He'll have his own slot. And so more importantly, Ariel, very exciting and so happy to have you on board. I think you're one of the bright leaders in the industry and honored to have you and excited to see what you could do.
Yeah, Gideon, thanks. I really appreciate it. This has been something long in the making. I thought I would have a podcast at like 17 when I tried to throw one up myself, and didn't happen. But here I am, 17 years later, and it's coming together. So happy to be a part of the 2W.
Well, it's so cool. Like kind of to your point, life happens in a weird and interesting way. I am not a media guy. I didn't dream of being a media guy or have a podcast. It really developed just out of a need that I thought. I have a great love and a passion for the automotive and I want to see, certainly the next 30 years ahead, just see it through, that we develop and we're the best industry and even pull great insights from other industries. And so I definitely know kind of where you're coming from, how things just come together. And, we've put a lot of work into it, and it's really awesome to have guys like yourself, and to think that you wanted a podcast at 17 and now you have your own slot, you can let it rip. I think that's pretty badass,
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. Makes me feel like I'm doing it right for all the people out there that kind of want to figure out how to get to this position and don't know how. The easiest way to do it is to just try, start casting nets, just go for it. And I think that's what happened here. I just wanted an opportunity to, have a chat with you guys, and this all worked out. So I'm super excited, super stoked.
For us, it was even like, and I know you and I and Lucas have had many discussions, a lot of this is about being and bringing the best information to the industry, whether we're, at a lot of our industry events, whether we're in adjacencies. I have had so many, people reach out and say, gosh, I've learned so much. And I'm not saying I'm the expert of everything. I just really enjoy the industry and I enjoy seeing it through. And anytime you have an opportunity to team up with guys like yourself, highly talented guys, that, for lack of a better word, really knows your shit and kind of can see the future and help, push it forward. I think that's kind of a dream for anything. And I really believe, and it's exciting to see, where we can take it as not only a podcast or an entity that brings, value and education to the young folks in the industry, the older. There's so many different things that's going on. I think it's awesome. And to your point, I think we'll see some really cool stuff that just develops out of this, and it becomes just the future.
Organic.
I think that's important.
Yeah, a lot of times you see these podcasts that pop up, and they're actually segmented or niches within the value chain, whether it's distribution or retail or some other niche within our industry. But to have something where you can bring on multiple entities from all elements of our value chain, it's going to be very valuable, because there's people who need to listen to the audience, or there's audiences that need to listen to a lot of the different viewpoints that'll be brought on here. And, I'm really excited to bring on guests that are going to be able to provide that value for people in our industry. So not only am I going to learn, I think the industry as a whole is going to take a lot away from it. So thanks for having me.
Well, and it's like, how many times have you been sitting in a conversation with a kind of a lot of the same things in our industry that have happened generation by generation and generation? Well, my father was in it, my grandfather was in it, and then I'm kind of doing the same path. But really have to take the risk of pushing limits, right? And can we incorporate next level ideology, taking a thesis, maybe a page out of a different industry that has done it better and applying it? That's where I think a lot of the forward thinkers are coming from, and you've seen it, I've seen it, but really it's just a genuine push to see it from maybe a different angle, or maybe a course correction, or maybe somebody who's thinking. Everyone thinks about strategy a little bit different, and I sit in a lot of meetings with great manufacturers that are well known in the industry, and you always sit with their, say, chief of strategy or kind of their executive team, and everyone has their own flavor of what they feel like is important, right? And
Absolutely. Yeah,
and you
absolutely.
and you can't discount them, but you absolutely have to understand where they're coming from and maybe see it from a different point of view, or maybe reshift their point of view, or maybe they reshift your point of view. And it never happens if you don't have the conversation. And that's what drives innovation. That's what drives growth, man. And that's pretty cool, I think, what we're seeing before our eyes in the industry.
Yeah, I agree. And you've seen that there's new podcasts that have been popping up left and right.
Yeah.
I think we're going to do it right. I think we're going to knock it out of the park. Um,
Yeah.
but
Well, and I could say this a lot of, I know there's a lot of great things with, there's a lot of different, I mean, because podcast has really kind of, it's evolved and grown. And I think things, they come and go, right? Podcasts come and go. This is our 66th episode for the 2W podcast, which is really exciting, because I think that's, they say, statistically speaking, you don't typically get through episode 6 or 7. So people buy all this equipment and this, and they get all excited, and then they don't ever get past 6 or 7. But the great thing is kind of how we're approaching this, from your lens. I mean, you can come and contribute, 1 or 5 or 10 or 20 or whatever you want, but you're bringing, and so we're going to compound our efforts to truly bring a value add product to the industry, in a way that is actionable, right? And I think, we're starting to see that. And like, to your point, there's a lot of podcasts that pop up and they come and go, and more power to them. But really our goal is really to stick around, man. I believe that, and this is a business kind of practice, is something that I follow very closely. The power is in the discipline, right? The more disciplined you are in your approach, the more disciplined you can be, the more powerful it is to the network, to the people around you. And that's, I think, the goal is to look at it through that lens and see where it takes us. And to your point, do it right, man. If you're not going to do it right, don't do it at all.
yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
But diving into a little bit of automotive, I'm actually kind of curious, man. What change of power, political change of power is happening?
It's huge. I mean, the last time this even happened, the entire market went into disarray.
Yeah.
At the time, I was not even on the distribution side. I was on the selling side.
Yeah.
And I mean, I say it all the time. People get rich, people get poor whenever anything like this happens, especially because of tariffs. And I'm sure it's on everyone's mind. Everyone's right now wondering what's going to happen next with Mexico, Canada,
Yeah.
China.
Yeah.
All these different countries, and we really don't know what to make of it until we hit these hard deadlines. But I mean, just recently, a lot of the statements that came out are coming to fruition. We saw Trump come out and say that he was going to apply a tariff to Canada and USA of 25%. Now, everyone said that that'd be like a crippling amount of tariff, because a majority of our imports are from those two countries, Mexico and Canada. And to think that we are going to leverage imports against them in our industry is terrifying for some people. I've noticed it every day. People are stalling and slowing down and no longer doing business as usual. Everyone is doing business behind 3 layers of caution.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely unreal. But let's see what happens.
How much do you think that is? Obviously Trump's been a figurehead, gosh, since forever, right? How much of that is like just trying to find a leverage point versus an actionable tariff, right? A 25% tariff on Mexico. So anything that from China hits Mexico is going to get smacked with a 25% tariff. So everyone, obviously, caution happens. How much of that is semantics and hand waving versus actually, do we think that really is going to happen?
They set a deadline of February 1st. To be honest, I think it will happen because the leverage is on our side. There was a study done by the Congressional Resource Service just like 2 weeks ago, and they showed that over 70% of imports from the United States were coming from Canada, and we're only, going the other way. They were sending about 70%. We only have a 15% export rate to them.
Uh-huh.
So if we tariff 74% of what they have coming in, can you imagine the amount of leverage that creates? We don't have to adopt their 15% of lumber, energy, automotive parts. And a lot of our manufacturers and distributors these days are utilizing those as almost like offshore manufacturing, just like bringing China home, bringing a little bit of Asia to Canada and Mexico in order to manufacture product, get it into the United States, utilize the North American Free Trade Agreement, which is obsolete. Now it's USMCA, in order to get prices down on our products. And here we are rolling it right back to about 6-7 years ago. So it's definitely a huge lever. To answer your question, I think it's a big stick that we're utilizing, and it's a smart stick. I mean, why haven't we done it before?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's funny. I was actually talking to Lucas, who is Canadian, by the way, and I've got a handful of other Canadian buddies. I kind of joke with them that, Canada is just going to become the little brother here to the U.S. here. They get all mad.
Yeah, didn't Trump say that? He said, these tariffs can go away if they want to become another state.
Yeah, right. That's a ballsy thing to say. But here's the thing is, and regardless of what side of the political spectrum that you live on, I personally like things to get shaken up a little bit. I personally like for people to be on their toes. I think it increases focus. It increases your true deliverables. And, I think when you look at the change of power, I mean, Trump's in office, he won. And it's kind of the thing is he's just a little crazy enough to maybe do it, right? Or do something, right? And I think that obviously helps. But Mexico, to change, Mexico's an interesting place to me, man. There's a lot of investment dollars happening in Mexico in the automotive, and there's no doubt about that. And I think that's going to be it probably already is developing into a hub. I think that we'll see that as a automotive hub, distribution hub, manufacturing hub, and good for Mexico. I grew up in Texas, man. I'm very close. My granddad, believe it or not, was from Mexico City, and he was born in Mexico City, man. So I've got some ties down there. So I would like to see Mexico continue to be a develop into a hub from North and South America. I think it's really smart, and I think it's happening. It's happening before our eyes.
Yeah, I hope it's a positive outcome. I think that you have good business sense on both ends of it. Like Mexico's current leadership, female president who has a very good head on her shoulders. And she's actually thrown a lot of ridicules at some of the things that the U.S. government has said, or maybe Trump more specifically, but absolutely irrelevant. I think they understand the pickle that they're in, and I would want things to remain in a positive condition for us because
they have to.
Going tit for tat with your neighbors isn't gonna ever win at all. You're just gonna suffer.
No, it's a slap for a slap. What is it? An eye for an eye. Nobody has it.
An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind.
There you go. Yeah, no, I just don't believe in that model. I don't believe in that model. What I do, and actually, I'm kind of curious, and this is a piece that I early on said, when the big push on EV, electrification of vehicles, I thought it was premature. Personally, I think anytime you have a government mandate, and obviously automakers heavily invested in EV, but to see kind of the change of power and to see some of the EV rollbacks, I mean, where do you think that's going to go? Is that something you think good, bad,
Well,
ugly, maybe the right? I don't know.
It's definitely going right. From what I've heard in the industry, one, it was an executive action that was revoked by the new administration immediately. So there is no more 2035 mandate for EV vehicles. And if you recall, last time I was on your show, we actually talked about that, and I said it is not sustainable. This will not hold up. I just don't see it happening whatsoever.
I recall that specifically.
Yeah, and here we are a couple months later, and it's rolled off. So it makes sense. Yeah, people need to just be able to buy
just
whatever
fundamentally
it is that they
thinking, like fundamentally thinking, if you look at the history of the combustion engine or transportation in general, I mean, you look at the 70s, the 80s, right? They go from the gas guzzling kind of V8, right? You're obviously we layer in technology, we improve technology. Obviously, Toyota rolls out the hybrid, the Prius, right? That was kind of the first kind of game-changing piece of 50 miles to a gallon. Elon Musk is the innovator, right? And good for him to innovate Tesla. I think Tesla should be here. I think they're kind of their first mover advantage. But when you see all of the automakers that historically have legacy, they're legacy automakers. When you see that begin to heavily invest in EV, I just think like we totally skipped the hybrid step. I mean, we totally skipped that, and that's just common sense. And I don't mean to go common sense because I know this administration politically is like all about common sense leadership or whatever you want to say, but that's just the fundamental next step, right? Can we squeeze 100 miles a gallon out of a combustion engine through a hybrid approach? I think yes. I think that be possible. But
the technology is already here. It's on the road. I'll give you a prime example. Funny, that's no pun intended, but Toyota RAV4 Prime. Look it up. The average estimate for 1 gallon in conjunction with a hybrid component is like 119 miles to the gallon. I think they call it EMPG. It's a combination of both, but it's already there in the marketplace. Only sold in California. You can't buy it at the federal level.
Wow. So this is new to me. I did not realize this. Toyota RAV4 Prime plug-in hybrid SUV gets, again, this is an AI generated Google, gets 94 miles per gallon for combined gas and electric operations. That is a home run. What's that?
Imagine if they had just applied that technology or focus on that technology a little bit further.
Yeah, and so just running back about the Toyota RAV4 Prime, I actually didn't even realize that was available. And did you say they're only selling that thing out of California?
Yeah, they're only selling it out of California. I don't know why it's a federal component, and no one's looking at it. I mean, they limit the amount of vehicles that they can actually put on the road. Makes absolutely no sense to me. Just
this is the stuff that I don't understand. And I talk about this. I live in this industry. I was not familiar with the RAV4 Prime. I'm literally looking at it. I mean, you go to the gas station and you literally pull up your pump and it's like, click. Oh, I got 700 miles ready to go. Like 2 seconds, 5 gallons. Like what?
Yep.
No.
Strapped like a 10-gallon tank on that thing. You're at 1,000-mile range. That's like a Honda Civic.
Honey, we don't ever have to stop. We're going from Florida to Wyoming. We don't have to stop, honey.
Yeah, could you imagine?
You better put your catheter in. Not stopping for that. I would run a tight ship, man. If I can get like 2,000 miles on my vehicle, I'd run a tight ship with my cars, with my kids, man. Hey, man, shut up. You better pack a lot of snacks. We're not stopping. We're getting there.
Yeah, exactly. Throwing an additional gas tank in the trunk. It's like, no, we're going to make this thing run 200 miles.
That's right.
Or 2,000 miles total.
For sure. But I think that's where I believe the industry needs to start to focus on. I think the next decade or 2 decades, it needs to focus on a hybrid of an ICE along with a battery type of approach. And what this does too, and we don't have to get too deep into it, but this kind of locks up your distribution in our industry because you're still supplying those hard parts. Versus the EV, it's, you have less than 60 parts on the vehicle that are actually replaceable, mostly being brakes.
Most people don't want to
tires and brakes. Yeah, good. Sorry.
Most people don't want to replace any of these things because they're so
Yeah,
sensitive, allotment to warranty. No one's qualified to work on an electric vehicle at home. I mean, you're not going to ask Juan down the street to go and, replace an alternator on a Tesla. It's just never going
no,
to happen.
no.
So it's quite interesting to see the optics and where they're going with this, the direction in which they're pushing the consumer by doing things like this. It's like, why not just let everyone have hybrid vehicles
I
for
100%
10 more
agree. No,
years?
I totally agree. My next vehicle that I do buy is going to be a hybrid, which is really interesting. I think we're going to continue to see a lot of things happen. But I'll tell you, Ariel, I mean, it's really, I'll tell you this, man. It is, we are overly thrilled to bring you on, run your own set, and bring so much value to the industry. I can tell you the listener base, our industry, I think a guy like you is just needed. And so we are pretty fired up for the future and looking forward to what happens in 2025.
Awesome. Me too. It's going to be a good year.
Yeah, absolutely. And folks, as always, if you do, please like and subscribe. The 2W podcast, it's created for the industry. We want to bring the most cutting edge insider information, just really a forward opportunity for our listeners in the industry to pull from. And again, if you're looking to contribute and you're looking for a platform that you really don't want to do all of the starting and all of this and that, Ariel, we are so happy to have you, and we look forward to great things. Kicking off 2025 right. So looking forward to it, and it's a pretty exciting future for everybody involved, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I can't be more grateful to be on here, and I'm excited to see what kind of content we can bring. Like you said, it's a podcast for the industry, by the industry, and with the industry. We're all in it together, and so the greatest thing about it is we're just helping each other out. We're not trying to
Absolutely.
discuss anything crazy out there. Just let's help each other out.
100%. Well, as always, folks, please like and subscribe. The best way to support the podcast and what we do is like and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments or feedback, good or bad, we welcome it all. As always, this is the voice of the industry. We are the 2W podcast.